Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 1984 film Bloodsuckers from Outer Space. The interesting thing is, when I was looking it up, I was finding it two ways. It was either like this, Bloodsuckers all one word, which this is a Vinegar Syndrome release, as you probably assumed, or the original way it was released as Bloodsuckers as two words. So, kind of interesting, weird little thing. Don't know why it changed, but hey. Obviously, it looks great on this for what it is, because it's Vinegar Syndrome. They do a great job. Some cool special features on there that I already watched, including a pretty long documentary on the making of the film, which is close to an hour. It's like 50-some minutes, so that's really, really cool. But, you know, it's got a cool cover. Wish I had the slipcover for this, because there's a very cool slipcover. You can look it up online if you want to, if anyone wants to see the back of this. But this is definitely one of those so bad it's good films. It's like a no-budget film, is what it appears to be, and those are a lot of fun typically. So I did have a pretty good time with this. It does have a certain charm to it. It feels kind of like a Don Dohler type film, if you want something to kind of compare it to, but a little bit different. But yeah, let's talk some more about Bloodsuckers from Outer Space. Written and directed by Glenn Coburn, who also did Tabloid and Hollywood Deadbeat. Have not seen those. This film actually premiered at Joe Bob's Drive-In Movie Festival in 1984. Shows you how long Joe Bob's been at it, shows you how old this film is, and that's really cool. This is like, it makes it kind of feel like it's like a Mutant Family original in a sense. Just saying. One film critic called it the best low-budget film from Texas. I mean, in a certain way, yeah. There's a lot of heart that goes into the film. That's one of the big things to it, and especially if you watch the special features on there, you really do get that from people talking about it. There's a lot of love that went into it, and that's probably why there's so much charm to the film, because it also just seems like they weren't taking themselves too seriously. Like, there's this kind of like winking at you comedy that kind of shows up in the film, and it really does increase its value as kind of like a so bad it's good film. The beginning of it is pretty boring with no music. It's just a farmer doing farmer things. I did not like that beginning. I was like, oh no, what am I getting myself into with this film? Is this going to be just a straight up stinker? But thankfully, once things get going, not the case. But an odd choice to not have any music to start and just slowly watching this farmer farm or do farm related things. So it's kind of like, I could not handle the aggressive cuts with the farmer being hit with the wind. It was literally making me nauseous. It was like these very, very quick, aggressive cuts that were happening. That stuff makes me nauseous. It's like a motion sickness type thing for me in particular. So like I literally had to cover my eyes as soon as it, not as soon as it started, but when it went for a little bit, I'm like, maybe this will be fast, and then it's not fast. So I was like, ugh. Did not enjoy that. Plus, it was weird. It was a very odd choice. Also, the whole like, I guess it was like a space wind that's kind of hitting people and then turning them into these, I'm just going to call them bloodsuckers, because it's like kind of zombies, but kind of a little bit vampire-ish because they actually suck blood. So I'm just going to call them bloodsuckers. They do their own thing. And for that reason, I do think the film is a bit unique, because it's kind of mixing those things. They even talk about zombie. They talk about vampire within the film, so that's cool. The blood scene with the farmer is really funny in my opinion, because of the acting and how the blood is spewing out of his mouth, even when his mouth is shut, when he's like writhing on the ground and the blood just like pouring out. And like there are moments where he's like making noises and his mouth is shut, but the blood is still pouring out like his mouth is open. Just adds to the so bad it's good charm in my opinion. And I also touched on the acting of that. The acting in general for this film is not good. I mean, they even talk about that in the making of documentary. Like, they admit it's not good acting. Like, everyone kind of said that. But, again, adds to the so bad it's good charm, in my opinion. The character of Buford doesn't really need much to set him off, does he? It's actually kind of, I was kind of let down by the fact that we didn't get more Buford. I was also let down by the fact that we didn't get more Norman the janitor. Those were two characters that are a little more out there, a little more wild with things they were saying and their attitudes, and they were more interesting characters, and I think that more time with them would have been better, because in comparison, a lot of the other characters weren't even that interesting. Probably the most interesting character was the General Sanders, who actually was modeled after, I think his name's Hayden, in Doctor Strangelove. So if you know that watching the film, you can definitely draw that parallel. That actor really did try and channel it. And I will say that I think he was the strongest actor within the entire film, which it's not really that hard to do, honestly, but he actually did a pretty solid job, in my opinion. Especially taking that inspiration from Hayden from Doctor Strangelove, which is a wonderful film. If you've never seen it, make sure you see it. You gotta love how Jeff and Sam have a relationship where Jeff just writes up whatever Sam wants in the paper. It was just kind of like a funny introduction to the film, and you're just like, oh, okay, like this is how it's gonna be. It's going to be like kind of bare minimum effort writing, where it's like these characters are not very deep, they're probably not going to really develop or anything. It just set the expectation, so you knew kind of what you were getting into. But so bad it's good, this stuff happens. The doctors studying Dr. Pace don't seem very alarmed about the zombie bloodsucker issue. Actually, not a lot of people seem that alarmed about that issue of all these people becoming bloodsuckers. Everyone's very even keel, very calm about this situation, which makes you think that they've dealt with something kind of like this before, even though no one says anything like that. But it's weird. You would think that people would be panicking, people would have a lot stronger reactions to it, but they just don't. But again, that kind of adds to the so bad it's good charm. I was kind of confused when Jeff calls himself an artist to Uncle Joe because he's a news reporter. That was just another one of those kind of like funny moments of dialogue, which there are some really funny moments. Probably the most funny is the one where Bloodsucker Uncle Joe's arm gets ripped off, which is apparently like the most quoted quote from the film. I'm not going to say it because I don't want to drop the F-bomb on here, but yeah. I try to keep it relatively clean, even though I'm talking about horror. So, as soon as Jeff has the talk with Uncle Joe, you know he's the main character. That establishes it. Because in the beginning you're meeting a bunch of characters at once, and you're like, I don't know which way we're going to go. Who are we going to end up following necessarily? But once that in-depth conversation with Jeff and Uncle Joe happens, you're just like, oh, okay, we're going to be sticking with Jeff. He'll be our main character, so there will be a little bit of development with him. That like they tried to get a tad bit of depth with Jeff, but there wasn't much. It wasn't much. Jeff has real big anger issues, as is evidenced by him destroying his car over a blown tire. Now, I'm assuming that was supposed to show you that it's kind of like this reaction to a lot of things in his life just kind of building up and stacking on top of each other to a point where like the blown tire was just the last straw that just made him like, I'm done, you know, and he had to lash out. He had to take his anger out on something. And he actually was beating a car up, but they didn't put any like special glass in there or anything. That was like he was actually beating out the glass of that car. So he actually did get cut by it too. In the special features, he was talking about that. So he has a scar from it, so he will always remember his time on Bloodsuckers from Outer Space. Who drives around with a tank of nitrous in their car? Apparently it's Julie. And also, they don't, like, Julie and Jeff don't know each other when they meet. So why is she automatically like, hey, you want to hit this nitrous in the backseat of my car? Like, it seems like a weird thing. Like, if he saw the tank, if I were her, I'd just be like, it's helium for, you know, blowing up balloons for some kids. You know, something like that. I'm a clown on the side. I don't know. But it's just weird. The whole nitrous thing doesn't really fit into the story. It's just a weird thing. I'm assuming that someone involved with the film was a fan of using nitrous. That'd be my guess. General Sanders trying to get into the research facility I thought was kind of funny with the whole like password gag going on between him and the guy at the facility, like right at the fence. And like I felt like you could kind of tell that like they just found like a random fence. And then they were just kind of shooting this guy through this fence. Because it didn't really look like it was at like any sort of special facility or anything. It was just kind of funny. But I think in that moment it lets you know that the film's not fully taking itself seriously. Really, it's because it seems way too intentional with the comedy of that exchange with the password and everything. So yeah, Ralph kind of seems like a Keanu Reeves type researcher. Old school Keanu Reeves. I'm talking like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure Keanu Reeves. And Bogus Journey for that matter. But I just kind of viewed him as like that mode of acting in that. He was just like very like, whoa type. Not very convincing as a researcher. But the woman, I forget what her character's name was. I can't remember at the moment. But probably did the best. She was the most convincing as a doctor, as was Dr. Pace. Dr. Pace, pretty convincing, especially with his monologue, which I'll talk about in a little bit. It is funny how the researchers want to run a 4-year study when the bloodsuckers are going around killing people now. They're going around killing people, other people are getting infected, and they have this plan that they present to the general saying, well, we got this 4-year study we want to do. Pair that up with the fact that they're not acting like they really care all that much, that they're very blasé about what's going on. And it seems like they just look at this as a research opportunity. So they're just like, we'll be fine. Dr. Pace isn't, but we'll be fine. As long as we keep him under wraps. So it's just kind of funny. They're just like, let's do a 4-year plan. At that point, there wouldn't be a town, honestly. I don't know what type of research they'd be doing then. Jeff really knows how to interest the ladies, talking about a stamp collection, living in his grandmother's house, his parents being dead, and his brother being a researcher. Cover all the hot topics. But it worked for him, because then what happens? Sex happens. Sex happens. And the scene outside of the house, hearing the sex going on, sounded violent. A lot of things being broken. I literally wrote down, I love how it sounds like Jeff and Julie are demoing his grandmother's house while they're having sex. It literally does. That's another moment that just lets you know this isn't too serious, but it was funny. It was also just kind of weird that they're just like, hey, we just met, let's get it on. And this is before they really even know anything's going on with the whole bloodsucker situation. I'd understand that a lot more if they're like, we could end up being bloodsuckers or dead. Better have sex. I get that. As soon as Ralph unstraps Dr. Pace, you know it's over for him. I'm sure most people saw that coming. Like, gets unstrapped, it's one of those moments, oh, okay, here we go. And sure enough, that's what happens. The whole scene with Uncle Joe and Aunt Kate as bloodsuckers, I thought that was pretty funny. That's one of my favorite scenes from the film, I think. I didn't expect them to have full-on conversations as bloodsuckers. I kind of thought, especially based off of how the farmer was in the beginning, that they would be nonverbal like typical zombies are, but they're bloodsuckers. They're not typical zombies. So I like the fact that they talk because that helps add that comedic moment to it, especially because there's so many moments where they're kind of like pontificating to some degree or another about their new existence. So I like that aspect of it. For being a no-budget film, Uncle Joe's arm being ripped off actually did not look too bad. And there actually is a special feature on the Blu-ray that has a team of practical effects people show you how you would do that. That exact practical effect for almost no money. Well, not no money, but very little money. So it's pretty cool. Caro syrup, black cherry Kool-Aid. Those are the key things. And for spraying a pump bug sprayer that you can then hook into some plastic tubing. So yeah. The aftermath of Jeff chopping off the farmer's head is really funny. The arms just moving around as the blood's spurting everywhere. That kind of like, oh, because that's what happens after heads get chopped off, right? In the special features, they actually said that became their signature dance from the film, that they would do it like rap parties and when they would get together, they'd be like, everyone do the headless dance. I think that's pretty funny. I enjoyed that, but it's just funny to see in the first place. We're just like, wow, it's just flailing. Which apparently there was a child in the costume at that point, which was funny because they had to put the piece on the top of the severed head. The second time Norman the janitor shows up, it makes me hope he'll become more involved because he was a fun character. Same with Buford, but nope, didn't get that. That kind of sucks. Missed opportunities. The Dr. Pace monologue is some of the best acting in the film. I do have to say that. It is some of the best acting in the film. I know I said General Sanders did a good job. He did. But that monologue that Dr. Pace does about kind of like who the bloodsuckers are, where they come from, all that stuff, So I was kind of impressed with it, especially that far into the film when pretty much everything you're seeing is just like not very good acting. But yeah. Jeff and Julie do have the right idea about having sex in the car because at that point it could be the last time. I'm being serious about this. Like, if you're in a situation where you know you're gonna die, I feel like that's a good thing to do. Like, if you're around someone, just have that be your last thing. You probably won't regret it. Maybe you will if you survive. But hey, you can deal with that later. Just saying. I laughed at the part where the bloodsucker throws the body from the roof, especially because that body looked just ridiculously limp and fake. You could tell it was just like stuffed clothing. Also, I just didn't see it coming, so it was just a very welcome kind of ridiculous moment. He's just like, man, he's like, I like how you can see Sam and Pam throwing blood on the shower curtain when they turn. That's when, after they've gotten it on, they are in the shower together. And then all of a sudden, they're starting to change into bloodsuckers. And, people start, like, vomiting blood. You can see, because it's a little bit see-through the shower curtain, them, like, grabbing stuff and throwing the blood on the curtain. Again, just a little more charm for the so bad it's good aspect of the film. When the army dudes get torn apart, I like the bloodsucker kid who walks away with the arm in hand. It's like this mass just kind of descends on them, and it's just like, it's a mass, and the kid like walks out of the middle of it, and he's just like, oh, I got this arm. Like it's like a turkey leg or a chicken leg or something, and he's just like, oh, munch on this over there. Just another nice little funny moment. Sam's explanation of his new life situation is a nice self-aware comedic moment. I was talking about that before, where the fact that they can talk and they are, like I said, pontificating on their existence, their new existence, those are some of the funniest moments to me. Those are very amusing, and I really did enjoy that. Those are definitely those, like, very intentional winks at the audience, so I really like those moments. Excuse me. I like that the president says yes to dropping a nuke on the town because he wants to get off the phone for some booty. I mean, he was getting too impatient at that point, and he was literally just like, just get me off this phone. Fine, just drop the nuke. I don't care. It'll make you happy. I can get to this piece over here. It was just kind of funny. Again, goes to show you, not taking it too seriously making the film. General Sanders didn't seem to care too much about getting his coordinates right. He really was like working at that computer to set the coordinates for the nuke, and then was literally like, I don't know if I'm going to get these coordinates right, but, the fallout, it should be close enough. Like, whatever. I mean, says a lot about that character, adds another kind of comedic moment to the film. Yeah, but it's just kind of funny how he's just like, good enough. I'm done. I do like the ending with the bloodsucker townsfolk kind of just living like they're normal. I thought that was an interesting twist to it. I thought it was going to be like this kind of like terror laden ending where it's just like, oh no, maybe they're going to move on to another town. But it actually kind of seems like they were just going to hang out. And like you even see the one who's just like reading a newspaper. So they're like going about kind of their old lives, but their new lives at the same time. So it's just a bloodsucker town at that point, which I think is kind of fun. I like that concept. But what would they end up eating? That's a big question. How would they end up surviving? Because they need to eat other people. At some point they'd be done. I guess they would have to go somewhere else or just die. I don't know. Obviously, the acting in this film is terrible, but that's part of the fun. The worst part of this film for me is how long a lot of the scenes end up being when there's not a whole lot happening. There are like long stretches. I mean, one of the prime examples, just because it's on the top of my head, is the very beginning of the film where it's the farmer just doing farm things. And you're just like, this is just kind of like unnecessarily long. There were a bunch of those moments of the film. Really does feel at that point like it's trying to be kind of stretched out. So yeah, that's my biggest issue with the film. But other than that, I enjoyed it. There's a lot of fun stuff there. It's a so bad it's good film. A lot of charm to it, like I said. And you can tell that people cared about what they were doing with this film and had a good time. So I like that. Out of 5 stars with half stars in play, as an actual just straight up film, I mean, obviously it's like half a star. But as a so bad it's good film, I'm going to go 3.5 today. I was between 3 and 3.5, but the more I'm talking about it and the more I'm thinking about some of the stuff from the special features and getting a little more insight it's a 3.5-star So Bad It's Good film for me. This is one I'm excited to get the info out there on it and maybe show to some friends and family to give people a nice laugh. But thanks everyone for checking this out. Go ahead and comment about your thoughts on this film. Also, any other So Bad It's Good films that I have not seen that you think I may like, I would appreciate those recommendations. Do me a favor, hit subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell button if you want to know when I'm putting up new videos, which is 3 or 4 a week, which I think is a good amount of work I'm putting in. So I appreciate people kind of joining in on this. But regardless, thanks for checking out this video, and until next time, keep it brutal.